Hey, it's Katya. I want to talk about something that is going on behind the scenes for, I believe, everybody who struggles with binge eating, and that is never, ever really talked about directly. And that's what I perceive to be a real transformation that's actually going on under the surface. So there's there are different evolutionary theories in the world, right? And I'm not talking about like Darwinian, right, versus other theories of evolution. I'm talking about the way that an individual soul evolves through their lifetimes. And I'm talking inherently reincarnationally. So that might or might not jive with you. And if it doesn't jive with you, rather than thinking about it over the course of lifetimes, you can think about it over the course of one lifetime. But from my observation, not everybody undergoes this transformation that I'm going to speak about in one lifetime. This is something that many are not going to go through in this lifetime. But for many of us, we are in a lifetime that is inherently transitional for us. And you can learn more about this in the podcast on curbthebinge.com called The Astrology of Addiction with Tina Catola. She's a really world-class astrologer that has laid out and detailed this whole view of evolution, this evolutionary perspective in that podcast. So please listen to it. She also has a book. So the transition that I'm talking about is the transition from living in a place or from a place where we're coping with life, right? Life is hard. We feel like it's overwhelming. There's just every little piece of it is hard. Family is hard. Work is hard. All the the working parts that it takes to make a life. I mean, talk about like what's going on in the world, right? On a larger scale, it's also overwhelming, and it just kind of hits right here, and so we cope. Different people cope differently. Binge eating is one of those ways, or not even binge eating. I don't want you to think of it that way. I want you to think about before binge eating, before we even identify it as an issue, all those people on this planet that without having some concept that there's even, any kind of unhealthy behavior pattern going on, that just kind of stuff their face and eat as a way of dealing with hard emotions and that hard life feeling hard. And this is not, I'm not talking about, this is people that just think like, what? That's normal. This is what our family does, and we just eat to feel good. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying that that's something different. You see people do that all the time, but they haven't self-identified themselves as, I have a problem, right? They're not saying that. They're not looking for Overeaters Anonymous groups. So that's the phase, the stage where we're coping. Now, that's not the end of the evolutionary spectrum, right? From that phase, eventually we move out of it because coping in the end doesn't work, right? We know something's missing. We know there's more to life, and we want that more, even if we don't know exactly what it is. It's kind of like a caterpillar living in its chrysalis. It can't live there forever, right? It's safe, it's protected, and maybe it kind of gets used to this illusion of comfort, but what the caterpillar doesn't exactly understand is that there's a next phase coming. And that next phase in the human soul is a phase where we're actually fully showing up in life, fully embodying our purpose, and fully stepping up to the plate in every moment with presence and actually facing all of our problems. Can you imagine? Like every single issue that comes up, our finances, our relationships, our spirituality, right? All of these areas, that we actually start to not just face them and clean up that mess, because that doesn't sound so fun, but we actually start to enjoy that process. Like that process is what we live for. And we show up to our challenges like, I'm actually going to create the life I want. And these challenges are the meat. They're the juice. They're the material from which that dream life is going to be created. And we don't go from that one stage, the coping stage, to the next stage, which is that in full bloom. Tina Catola calls it the third stage. We don't go from one to the other overnight. In fact, the way Tina talks about it, it's a decades-long process, from anywhere from 1 decade to 4 decades. And this process is tumultuous, because imagine a butterfly coming out of the cocoon. It's painful. Am I the butterfly? Or am I a caterpillar? Am I a butterfly? Am I whatever was in the chrysalis? What's going on here? One moment I'm one thing, the next minute I'm another thing. This process is often characterized by having, early in the process, it feels like life is really hard most of the time, but then you have moments of just bliss, like, oh my God, I see what's possible. And those moments are fleeting. Further on in the process, those moments become more frequent. And then further on into the process, what happens is that those moments start to characterize your life. Your life feels mostly like this transcendent place where you really are in touch with your purpose. And then there are still moments once in a while where you get caught. And maybe you go back to an old coping mechanism, or you just feel like that caterpillar in the chrysalis again. And then those moments are such hell, because most of the time you're living in this beautiful place. And so I wanted to that's kind of what, where I exist a lot of the time, is this most of the time I'm in a very new place in my life, and yet I still get pulled back occasionally, and those moments are so ridiculously hard. And so what I wanted to say specifically to binge eating, right? Not everybody who's going through this transition displays binge eating, but I believe that everybody who displays binge eating and who's self-identifying as a binge eater, as a compulsive eater, emotional eater, and looking for help is in this transition. I fully believe that, because those who are still in that coping stage, they're attached to their coping mechanisms. They're not going to a group to let go of that. That's what's keeping them safe in their cocoon, and the life out there is too scary. So what I want to tell you is that what I believe is happening is that we're discovering that what we're really hungry for is something else. What we're really hungry for is something much deeper, and it's an itch that is not scratched by food. And yet we don't know how to scratch it, and that's not our fault. We just haven't really been given that key yet. And even if we have been given that key, we haven't practiced it enough yet to really live it all the time. So we keep on eating food to try to scratch an itch that is not going to be scratched by food anymore. So that's what creates that hell of, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm eating, and nothing, I never feel filled up. So I want you to take heart that this is actually really good news, and that your process is unfolding, that there's no way that you're not going to make it through, because the process is actually harbingered, it's led, it's the power behind it is cosmic intelligence itself, right? And that's not to say like, oh, I can, that's free license for me to just binge and indulge. It's not exactly that, and it's not that. It's just to get a bigger picture that the transition is uncomfortable, that's normal, that as much as you can love yourself here where you are is going to really help. And even saying that is not always easy. So anyhow, I'm just kind of going on and on right now. But I wanted to really bring that to you so that you know where you're at. And that you know that you're not alone. And that you know that there's a better and better and better and better and better and better and better future waiting for you. Okay? So take heart, number one, and I love you, and I'm sending you my heartfelt solidarity. Till next time.